Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom Bracha and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Shabbos Daf Yud Aleph, where 3 lines from the top says the Gemara. V'amar Rav bar Machasya amar Rav Chama bar Gurya amar Rav. Kol ir shegagoseho gevoyin beis hakneses. Any city whose roofs are higher, are built on a higher grade than the shul and the Beis HaKnesses. It's not meant to be that way. The Beis HaKnesses is meant to be the focal point of the city, the most conspicuous landmark, and therefore is meant to be built higher than all the other roofs of the places of residence. So a city that does not comply with this building code, Kol Ir, any city that its roofs, Gevoyin Beis HaKnesses, are higher than the shul, L'soiv Chareva, it will incur destruction. Shenemar l'roimeim es beis Elokeinu, to exalt, to elevate the home of Hashem, the Beis HaKnesses, ulahamid es charveisav, and to resurrect its ruins. So we see there's a connection between the position of the shul and the condition of the rest of the homes of the city. V'hanemila bebatim, this is only regarding places of residence. Aval b'kashkushi v'avruri, regarding forts and towers which are not used as places of residence. Less lamba, there's no concern regarding those structures. They may be built higher than the Beis HaKnesses. Amar Rashi, ano avdi l'mata machasya. Rashi explains was the Rosh Hashiva in the city of Mata Machasya. And Rashi says, I've accomplished, ano avdi l'mata machasya, I've accomplished, I influenced that in Mata Machasya they should build their homes in accordance with this stipulation, that the Beis HaKnesses should be on a higher grade than the rest of the homes, and indeed it resulted that the Loi Chareva, that Mata Machasya was not Charev, was not destroyed. Ano Avdi, I brought about L'Mata Machasya the Loi Chareva. Says the Gemara, is that true? But it actually was destroyed. V'ha Chareva. Says the Gemara, nevertheless, it did not incur destruction as a consequence of transgressing this avain, meaning they complied with this halacha. The shul was the highest structure in the city, and therefore when they were destroyed, it wasn't as a result of this avain. Now what difference does it make why it was destroyed? In any case, it was destroyed. Says Rabbeinu Chananel, what Rashi meant to say was that I caused that the churban should not be mehai ovein la'olam. It should not incur eternal, everlasting destruction. Because since the churva did not come as a result, as a consequence of this ovein, therefore the churban is not everlasting. What's the pshat in this? Says the Sefer B'chor Shar, what the Rechananel means to say is that we know the Gemara in Brachos tells us that Hashem promises that when Har Tzion will be rebuilt, the same fate will apply to the Bati Tzadikim. The homes of Tzadikim will also be rebuilt at the same time as Har Tzion. Therefore, the Gemara here means to say that since in Mata Machasya they built their homes in accordance with this halacha, they built their homes in a way that they demonstrated that their batim, their places of residence, was merely secondary to the Beis HaKnesses. It was subordinate, it was tafel to the Beis HaKnesses. Therefore, surely their homes will share the same fate as the Beis HaKnesses. And when the Bati Tzadikim will be rebuilt and resurrected, La'asad Lavai, their homes as well will be rebuilt. So although there's a churban, but it's only temporary, it won't be a churban la'olam. Continues the Gemara. V'amar Rav bar Machasya amar Rav Chama bar Gurya amar Rav. Tachas Yishmael, it is preferred to be under the rule, subservient to Yishmael, the descendant of Avram, the nation of Yishmael, and not v'loy tachas Nachri. Rather that than being under the rule of Nachri. Rashi says this is referring to the nation of Edom, which was more wicked than Yishmael, at least in those days. And he continues, Tachas Nachri, rather be under the jurisdiction of the Edom, v'loy Tachas Chaver. Chaver was an even worse nation. Rashi says it was from the Bnei Parsim, from the Persians. Tachas Chaver, better be under the rule of chaver v'loy tachas Talmud Chacham, rather than serving a Talmud Chacham, because the Talmud Chacham requires, he commands a very high degree of kavod, of respect. And one who serves a Talmud Chacham, perhaps it's inevitable that he won't perhaps comply with all those requirements, and he will incur punishment as a consequence. As the Mishnah Pirkei Avos tells us, be careful from their sting, from their fire. A person is meant to treat a Talmud Chacham with the highest degree of respect. Therefore, it's risky to serve a Talmud Chacham. And finally, tachas Talmud Chacham, rather serve a Talmud Chacham, but loy tachas yosam almana, rather than serving a yosam almana, an orphan or a widow, who are very, very fragile and can be moved easily to tears. And one who deals and serves a yosam almana needs to relate to them with the highest degree of sensitivity, and perhaps one will not be careful with that and will incur punishment as a result. Therefore, better a Talmud Chacham than a yosam almana. Perhaps the lesson here is that, we're meant to relate to these individuals, a yosam or almana, with the highest degree of sensitivity, and recognize their high degree of fragility. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rava bar Machasa Amar Rav Chama bar Guvi Amar Rav. Kol chayli v'lechayli mi'ayim. Any sickness, as long as it's not a sickness of mi'ayim, of stomach or intestines, that's the worst. Kol ke'ev, any pain, v'loy ke'ev leiv, as long as it's not heartache. Kol michash, any light passing pain, v'loy michash roish, not a headache. Kol ra, anything bad, v'loy isha ra, as long as it's not a bad wife. Perhaps the lesson here is that when a person looks for a wife, he should look for a woman who possesses good midas, good attributes, which is the most important and overriding factor in a wife. Continues the Gemara of Amarava, Bar Machasya, Amar Rav Chama bar Guvi Amar Rav. If all the seas will be full of ink, va'al gamim, all the marshes, kul musam, we full of reeds to make quills from them. V'shamayim yiriyos, and the heavens will be, the skies will be parchment. V'chol b'nei adam lavlorin, and all people would be scribes. Ein maspikim lichtov, they will not have sufficient equipment and manpower to write down and record chalolo shel rishus, the depth of the heart, of the responsibilities, of the myriad of responsibilities that the government has to involve themselves in all the intricacies of their citizens, collecting taxes, waging wars, establishing peace and justice. So the ongoings and the various government activities encompass so much beyond our imagination. Micro, where do we see this hinted in the pasuk? Amar Misharshi Shamayim L'rum, to the height of heavens, ve'eretz lo'imek, at the depth of the earth, v'leiv melachim ein cheker, and the heart of kings we have no comprehension. Now, what is the point of this Gemara? So it's interesting that a similar terminology is found in the Akdamas poem liturgy we recite on Shavuos, which also describes this type of concept. If all the seas would be ink, etc., we don't have a sufficient ability to record, to describe the greatness of Hashem. So the connection perhaps is that we know that all appointments, all positions of authority are dictated and controlled directly by Hashem. We learned this in Gemara Brachos. So if this is the extent of a government down here on earth, can you imagine Hashem's ability to actually administer all the governments, various kingdoms and governments that control all the different countries of the world? Could you imagine Hashem's vastness and greatness, that he's the administrator of administrators. He controls, directs, and dictates everything that goes on in all the governments in the world. So certainly we can't fathom Hashem's greatness and vastness. Continues the Gemara, Ba'amar Rava bar Machasya Amar Chama bar Guvi Amar Rav. Yofet Tanis l'chaloim, if one fasts, he conducts a fast after he experiences a disturbing dream, this fast is indeed very beneficial to be mevatel, to annul the tzara or the the negative elements of the dream, it is very effective, just like a fire catches on the piece of flax. So the tinus burns up this disturbing experience, provided that he fasted on that day, the day following the dream. He should do so even on Shabbos. Even if the day falls out on Shabbos, it's important enough to fast even on Shabbos. Now we may recall that in Gemara Brachas, we learned that in this case, one is required to fast another day. The Gemara tells us that he's meant to add another fast. Why? Because since he negated Einik Shabbos, enjoyment of Shabbos by fasting on Shabbos, he requires another tinus to atone, to be mechaper for that chet as well. So he's going to fast twice. Says the Gemara a story, Rav Yeshua Breder of Idi, Ikla Leber Rav Ashi, he visited Rav Ashi. Abdilay Igla Tilsa. So in his honor, they shechted a third-born calf, which was a high-quality item, and they invited him to the meal. Amri lei litoy marmidi, come join the meal. Amr lu betani sivna, I'm actually in the middle of a fast, I can't join. Amr lei, so they told him, v'lei savale mar l'had Rav Yudah, do you not agree with the teaching, with the halacha, in the name of Rav Yudah? Dam Rav Yudah, loiva adam tanisui pareya, if a person has a need, he may borrow a tinus, borrow a fast day, and pay it back a different day. Now the Rosh points out, this is only said in the case where he didn't pinpoint, he didn't specify I'm going to fast on this day. He didn't say I'm going to fast on Monday. He was makabel himself a tinus. He accepted upon himself to fast on a undefined day. In that case, they told him, if a person accepted upon himself a fast day, he can go ahead and borrow and repay a different day. So here too, you can interrupt your fast day and repay it by fasting on another day in its place. He told him, I can't do that in this case, because this is a unique fast. Tanis chaloimhu. It's a tanis as a result of a disturbing dream, and I require it to fast on this day specifically. It is effective like the fire on the flax, provided that he fasts only on that day. So today is that day. I can't exchange it and replace it and substitute it with a different fast. It's important enough even on Shabbos. So therefore I cannot join your meal. So in summary, we have a few lessons in the name of Rabbi Bar Machasya, in the name of Rav Chama Bar Guria Amarav. Firstly, that the shul is meant to be situated higher than all the other places of residence. The Gemara Precision tells us, Tachas Yishmoel v'lo Tachas Nachri, and finally, a Yasam V'almana. They command the highest degree of sensitivity. We're meant to be exceptionally careful with how we treat them. The Gemara continued and told us, Kol chayli l'kol chayli mi'ayim, and finally, Kol ra v'lo isha ra. The Gemara continued and told us, the chalala shel rishus, the breadth, the depth of the government responsibilities are so vast, it is beyond comprehension. And finally, a tinus, a fast, is very effective to be mevatel, to annul a disturbing dream and its contents. Continues the Gemara. The Mishnah concluded with a statement that ein mafsikin likros krishma, aval mafsikin letfila. The question is, doesn't this seem to be redundant? The Mishnah already told us that one may not begin certain types of activities which have a tendency to get drawn out. For instance, a haircut, a meal, a bath. So these things are not meant to be begun before Tfilas Mincha, lest they draw one into missing the opportunity to daven. But once you've begun, once you've begun them, you're not required to interrupt them to daven. Rashi pointed out that's provided there'll be enough time available after completion of these activities to daven. Now the Mishnah concluded by saying, Mafsikin likros krishma. This is the Mishnah back on Testament Beis. Mafsikin likros krishma, ve mafsikin letfila. So what is the point of this conclusion? We are mafsik for krishma, but not for tefillah. This seems to be a repetition. We've just said that for tefillah there's no obligation or requirement to stop, to cease your activity. So why does the Mishnah need to repeat this halacha again? That we're not obligated to be mafsik letfila. Let's see the Gemara. Hatanali reisha, ein mafsikin. The Mishnah already told us in the reisha that there's no obligation to interrupt the activity for tefillah. So why does the Mishnah repeat itself? Says the Gemara, indeed, the last part of the Mishnah, the closing statement of the Mishnah, is actually referring to an entirely different subject altogether. Seifa Asan L'Divrei Torah. It's discussing learning of Torah, as the Gemara will explain. The Sani, as we learned in the Brisa, Chaverim Shayu Oiskim B'Torah, Talmidei Chacham who are immersed in learning Torah, Mafsikin L'Krishma, they must interrupt their learning. They must be mafsik their studies to recite Krishma, Vein Mafsikin L'Tfilah, but not for Tfilah. Why? Why do they not need to stop for davening? Amar Rav Yochanan Lo Yishanu. This is only said regarding very unique individuals who have attained a very high level of immersion in Limud HaTorah. El Lo Yishanu El Kegoyin Rav Shimon Bar Yochai v'Chaveirav. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and his colleagues Shetoirasan U'Menusan, that the Torah was their profession. They didn't even interrupt their learning to earn a livelihood. They were totally single-mindedly immersed and committed to Torah study. So since they were exclusively connected to the Torah in such an intense fashion, they are not required to stop their learning even for davening. Even if there won't be enough time for davening, they don't need to stop. They don't need to daven. As the Rambam explains, because in their case, Limud HaTorah is a greater mitzvah than davening. So this is unique for them. And this is what the Mishnah is referring to. When the Mishnah closes with the statement, Ma'afsikin L'Krishma ve'mafsikin L'Tfilah, the Mishnah is referring to these specific individuals. They are Torirasun U'Menusan. They're exclusively involved in Torah study, and they only stop for Krishma, but not for Tfilah. Aval Kegoyin Anu. This is Rabbi Yochanan speaking. But, for example, individuals like us, who Rashi explains do interrupt our studies to earn a livelihood. In this case, since our Torah study is somewhat assumes somewhat of an interrupted nature. It's not that continuous, exclusively, absolutely uninterrupted Torah study. It contains some interruptions, as minor as they may be. Therefore, we must be mafsik for tefillah as well. Al kol goyin anu mafsikin lekrishma. We must interrupt for krishma, uletfila, and for tefillah as well. So we have two categories. Ordinary people indeed need to be mafsik for krishma and need to be mafsik for tefillah. And as Rashi explained in the Mishnah, although once you've begun an activity, you don't need to interrupt it for davening, but that's only provided that there will be enough time available to do tefillah after the conclusion of the activity. But if one knows that if he proceeds with his activity, he won't have enough time to daven afterwards, he must be mafsik. He must interrupt for davening. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan is referring to. We must interrupt for tefillah as well as krishma. However, these individuals who were teirasan and menusan, who the Torah was their absolute exclusive profession, they do not need to be mafsik for tefillah. Says more, is that so? Vatanya, haven't we learned in the Brisa? Kishem sheim mafsikim l'tefillah, just as those individuals don't need to be mafsik for tefillah, kach ein mafsikim l'krishma. For krishma, they don't need to interrupt as well. So this is not consistent with what we just said, that for krishma, everybody needs to interrupt. Says more, that is a unique situation. Kitanahi, that Brisa is referring to a very special circumstance. Be'ibur shana, when the Chachamim went up to deliberate regarding establishing the Shana, the leap years, and that was a very unique and very exclusive activity. Taisus explains that this deliberation involved the Yamim Tovim, establishing the order and the organization of the year, which influenced the Seder of the Yamim Tovim. So this was a very, very special and important activity, and when the Chachamim were involved in the Ibur Shana, in that case they didn't even stop. They weren't even mafsik for Krishma, since it was deemed that this activity was of paramount importance. It affected the Yamim Tovim of Klal Yisrael. Therefore, indeed, in that case, not only didn't they interrupt for Tefillah, but for Krishma as well. Damar of Ada bar Ava v'chein tanu. Sabbath Agronia, the elders of Agronia also learned, Amar Blazer Tzaddik, Kishayinu Oiskim Bibra Shana B'Yavna, when we were involved in establishing, organizing the years, deciding whether the year should be a leap year or should be a non-leap year, Lo Yinu Mafsikin, In that case, we were not mafsik, loy l'krishma v'loy l'tfila, not for krishma, nor for tfila. Continues the Gemara. Lo yetzei hachayit v'machtoi. A tailor should not go out into the Rishus HaRabim with his needle, samach ha'chashecha, close to darkness. Shema yishkach v'yetzei. Perhaps he might forget. He might forget when Shabbos arrives, he'll forget that it's Shabbos and continue walking, carrying the needle. And the same thing applies to a scribe with his quill, on account that he might forget that it's Shabbos and might continue carrying the quill when Shabbos arrives. So you should be careful. A half hour close to darkness, you should not go out to the street with this type of item. Continues the Mishnah. One should not clean his garments from lice. He shouldn't read in front of a lamp, because there's a concern that he might go ahead and adjust the lamp to brighten the light, to assist him in his reading. Continues the Mishnah, Be'emes Amru, this is a clear-cut halacha. HaChazan Roya. The Chazan is referring to the Chazan HaKnesses, Rashi says, the one that was in charge of helping the individuals who got their Aliyah L'Torah. Now, in the olden days, there was no Baal Korah reading for everybody. Every person who got an Aliyah, he walked up to approached the Sefer Torah, made his bracha, and actually read on his own from the Sefer Torah. But there was a person there that was there just in case, to help and assist those individuals with the tune, with the nekudos. So this Chazan HaKnesses needed to take a quick glance at the parsha ahead of time, just to see the beginning and ends of the parshas, of the sections, in order to refresh them in his mind, so he'll be able to have the ability to assist the individuals tomorrow in shul. Says the Mishnah, so this Chazan can take a quick glance. He can take a quick glance, take a look at where the tinokes, the children, are reading, even if it's in front of a lamp. Since he's not concentrating, he's just taking a quick glance. But he certainly shouldn't actually read, because there's a concern that if he reads, then he'll concentrate and come to perhaps tip the lamp. Another example of a safeguarding to avoid an avera, a zav who is a tamei and a zava who is tmeya, they're not allowed to have relations with each other, so they shouldn't eat together because they might come to do avera with each other. Rashi points out that certainly a tahor with a zava should not do this, because that's worse. And the Mishnah is telling us even a chiddush that even a zav and a zava, when they're both tamei, still there's a chashash that even though they're both in the same state of impurity, I would think perhaps there's no concern. Yes, there's a concern even then that they might get carried away and do avera. Therefore, they shouldn't eat together in unison. And that is the source of the halacha that one with a nida needs to have a heker. There needs to be a something indicating a heker, a recognition to call attention to their state, so that they not proceed and come to a pitfall. Continues the Gemara, Tnan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah. Lo yamad adam Yachid. If a person is standing in Rishus HaYachid, he should not lean over. V'yishte b'Rishus HaRabim, and drink water in Rishus HaRabim. The same vice versa. B'Rishus HaRabim, one should not stand in Rishus HaRabim. V'yishte b'Rishus HaYachid, and lean over and drink in Rishus HaYachid. Now Tosfos points out, although we know from a Mishnah that one is certainly allowed to stand in one Rishus and handle an item, an object, in the opposite Rishus, there's no chashaz, no concern that he'll go and retrieve the item to himself. Says Tosfos, the Gemara in Eruvin actually explains that this is unique, because it's speaking about chafatzim hatzrichim lei, when he is handling an item that he needs. For instance, in this case, where he needs the cup which contains a liquid. So in this case, there is a concern that he might actually carry the glass back to him. So he's going to be taking it from the other rishus over to his rishus where he's standing, and he's going to commit the melacha veitzah. So one should not stand in one rishus, lean his head over to the other rishus and drink the other rishus, since he might carry the item, the object, back to his rishus. But if he leans over to the extent that his head and most of his body is actually in the other rishus, in that case it's as though he's present there. That is his makom, that's his place. In that case, there's no concern that I'll go bring the item back to him, and he's allowed to do it. Continues the Mishnah, V'chein begas. The same halacha will apply to a wine press, as the Gemara will explain soon. Continues the Gemara, Iboilu. So they ask the question, this halacha, this isser of standing in one rishus and leaning over and drinking in the other rishus, does it apply to a karmelis as well? Karmelis might. Now we know that a karmelis contains elements of both rishus hayachid and rishus harabim. Therefore, the chachamim prohibited carrying from a karmelis to either one of those rishuyos. Since it contains elements of rishus harabim, we're not allowed to carry from the karmelis to rishus hayachid, lest the person confuse it and say, well, apparently can carry from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid. Since a karmelis also contains elements of rishus hayachid, therefore we're not allowed to carry from a karmelis to rishus harabim, lest a person think that one may carry from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid. So the question is whether this gzera of leaning over applies to a karmelis as well. For instance, if a person is standing in rishus hayachid and he leans over to a karmelis, can he drink in the karmelis? Are we concerned that perhaps he'll go ahead and retrieve the glass back, bring it back to him in rishus hayachid and carry out from a karmelis to rishus hayachid? Does this gzera apply there as well? Amar Abaye, he, yes indeed. It is the same thing. Just as these gzeras apply to rishus hayachid and rishus harabim, the same prohibition will apply to a karmelis. Rav Amar, no. He gufa gzera. The whole entire isser of a karmelis, the whole concept of a karmelis is only a gzera d'Rabbanan, lest the person come to do isser Torah. So it itself is a safeguard. The whole concept of prohibiting carrying from it to a karmelis is only a gzera to safeguard from doing a malacha d'oraisa between two rishuyos d'oraisa. So it itself is merely a safeguard. And if so, va'anan nekum, can it be that we will go ahead and v'nigzar gzera, and we will go ahead and enact a safeguard on top of a safeguard? We don't do that. We don't make a decree on top of another decree. Since the entire Issa Karmelis is only Gzeir D'Rabbanan, when a person carries outright from a Karmelis to Rishus HaYachid or from a Karmelis to Sarabim, that is Issa D'Rabbanan, because we prohibited it to safeguard Issa Torah. So we can't go ahead and say, well, even in this case, he's not actually carrying outright, he's merely standing in the other Rishus and leaning over to the Karmelis. There's merely a concern that he might bring an item from the karmelis to the Rishus HaYachid. That's only a gzera. It's a concern. It's a safe. Perhaps we're choishish. We make a gzera. Perhaps he'll do it. So we're safeguarding against that possibility. So that's a safeguard on top of another safeguard. Because even if he should do it, he should carry out right from the karmelis to Rishus HaYachid. That's only it's a d'Rabbanan. It's only a gzera. We never do that. We never do a double layer gzera. Why? So Rashi in Beitz Daf Beis on Beis tells us that the source for Gzeres Rabbanan is from the pasuk of Mishmeres Trumaisai. The pasuk tells us that we're meant to erect safeguards on top of Isuri D'Oraisa to protect us from coming to biblical prohibitions. But only Mishmeres, we're meant to enact, to erect one safeguard, but never two, never a double safeguard. So in this case, it's a double safeguard. The first safeguard is actually carrying from a karmelis outright. The second safeguard would be to prohibit one from coming to a situation where he might go ahead and carry. That's a double safeguard, which we don't do. Now what does Abaye hold? Says Taisus. How does Abaye make a gzera? Says Abaye, says Taisus, dafka b'hitzah. Dafka in the case of the malacha b'hitzah, gazar Abaye. Indeed, Abaye agrees to the general concept. We don't erect the double gzera. It's only regarding the malacha b'hitzah that Abaye holds that we're going to make a gzera even in this case. He can't even lean over, lest he come ahead and retrieve the item from the karmelis to Rishus HaYachid. Now what is the reason for this? So Taisus doesn't elaborate, but based on the previous explanation of Taisus, perhaps we have an explanation here as well. Taisus explained that the reason behind this isser of standing in one rishus and drinking from the other rishus, this is a unique case. Since he needs the item, he needs the glass, which contains the liquid, we're choishish that he'll go ahead and bring it back to him, to the rishus that he's standing. So although ordinarily one may stand in one rishus and handle items in the other rishus, this case is unique. Since he's holding onto an item that he needs, we're afraid that he'll go ahead and just retrieve it back to him inadvertently. So perhaps in this case as well, Abaye holds that even in a karmelis, standing in one rishus and leaning over to a Carmelis, the possibility is so great, it's so plausible, that he's going to go ahead and retrieve this glass and bring it back to him. It's not a remote concern. It's not like an ordinary gzera. Therefore, we don't consider it to be gzera l'gzera, even though the Issa Carmelis, outright carrying from a Carmelis Shesayach, is only Issa D'Rabbanan. Nevertheless, Chachamim would add a gzera to this case as well, merely standing in the Rosh Hashanah and leaning over to the Carmelis. Because when one does that, he leans over and drinks in the Carmelis, we equate it, we consider the possibility to be so real that he's going to actually go ahead and bring the item back to him, the glass with the water back to him. It's not a remote concern. It's not like an ordinary gzera. It's a very real possibility. And we consider it to be so real that it is not considered to be like an added protection, like an added safeguard. We view it as reality. We view it as if it's happening. And therefore we consider the act of standing in Rosh Hashanah and drinking from the Carmelis as though he's actually carrying from the Carmelis back to Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, it doesn't go into the category of Gzera, and this too would be Asr according to Abaye. Continues the Gemara, Omar Abaye, Aminullah. Where do I have a source for this concept that even regarding a Carmelis, this Isser of standing in one rishus and leaning over would be Asr? The Ktani, because the Mishnah concludes with the words, V'chein Bagas. The Mishnah mentioned previously that tells us regarding the Isser of standing in one rishus and drinking in the other, the Mishnah concludes with the words V'chein Bagas. The same halacha would apply to a wine press. It says more, my gas. Which gas are we referring to? If it's referring to a gas, a wine press, which has a status, dimensions of Rishus HaYachid. And the Mishnah tells us that he shouldn't stand in Rishus HaRabim and drink from the gas, which is a Rishus HaYachid. Tanina, that was already mentioned in the beginning of the Mishnah, that one may not stand in Rishus HaRabim and drink from Rishus HaYachid. So why the repetition? If the gas here has a dimension of Rishus HaRabim, Tanina, that also was learned, that one might not stand in Rishus HaYachid and drink from Rishus HaRabim. So why the repetition? Ela lav Carmelis. Apparently the Mishnah, with these two words, V'chein Bagas, is intending to include a scenario of a Carmelis as well. This wine press has a status of a Carmelis. It has the dimensions of a Rishus Carmelis. And there too, this prohibition is applied. So this is the source for my Shita. Rav Amar no, V'chein Bagas. Do you know what these two words, V'chein Bagas, is referring to? It's not referring to the halacha of drinking in one rishus on Shabbos and leaning over to the other rishus. It's not actually referring to the halacha of Eitzah. It's referring to an entirely different topic. V'chein Bagas linear meiser. It's referring to the halacha of Tumas HaMeisers. V'chein Rav Sheshes, V'chein Bagas linear meiser. How does it apply to the halacha of meiser? As we will see, this is not as we learned in the Mishnah. Shoishin alagas. One may drink on the wine press. Now we know that produce is only obligated in Tumas HaMeisers once it was nigmar malachta, once the processing was completed. But before it was completed, it is not chayev in removal of Tumas HaMeisers. However, midrabanan, one may not consume the food or drink in a manner of kva, in a manner of regular consumption, only in a manner of arai, informally, in a snacking fashion. So one who drinks wine al hagas on the wine press prior to the wine having left the wine press down and trickled down into the pit below, that is considered to be koidev shnigmar malachta. It's still mixed up with the grapes, hasn't yet descended to the pit. Only once it gets to the pit, it's called nigmar malachta. But when it's still in the wine press, it's still lifnei koidem shnigmar malachta, and one may consume this wine, provided that he does so in a manner of arai, informally, in a snacking manner. So one may drink wine al hagas without removal of tumas ha'maisers. Bein ala chamen, bein ala tzainen, whether he dilutes it with hot water or cold water. In those days they dilute their wine. So either way, it's considered to be a shtiyas arai upata, and he's pata from tumas ha'maisers, provided that he's on the gas, he's on the wine press. Drinking on the wine press is considered to be a shtiyas arai, an informal drink. So that's the point of this Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us, V'chein bagas. A similar concept applies to a wine press. If one is standing in the winepress, or most of his head and most of his body is above the winepress, then he is on the winepress, and the drinking is considered to be a shtias arai, which is pater from Turas and Maisus. But suppose he's standing outside the winepress and he's merely leaning over, he's poking his head over the winepress. He is outside the winepress. And in that case, it's not considered to be an informal drink. It's not considered to be drinking on the winepress. And he is chayev in Turas and Maisus. So according to Rava, that is the point of the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us that this same concept of leaning over, that on Shabbos, one is not meant to stand in one Rishus HaYochid, and lean over, just lean his head over into the Rishus Rabbim and drink. It is only permissible provided that he leans his head and most of his body over into the Rishus Rabbim. The same concept will apply to a winepress. If he merely sticks his head over the winepress, he cannot drink without removing Tumas and Maisus. That is not considered to be drinking on the winepress. That is not considered to be an informal drink. However, if he leans his Rosh Rubai over the winepress, that indeed is considered to be drinking on the winepress. That has the halacha, the status of Ashtiyas Arai, and is pater from Turas and Maisus. So that is the shita of Rameir. Divrei Rameir, that he may drink on the winepress, regardless of whether he diluted the wine with chamin or with tzainin. It doesn't matter. It's considered to be an informal drink. Reb Lezer, Reb Tzadik Mechayev. Reb Lezer says, well, if he diluted the wine, that gives the wine a significance, a prestige. It gives it a form of kva, and it is no more considered to be an informal drink, and therefore, although ordinarily drinking on the winepress is considered to be an informal drinking, but in this case they diluted the wine, he is chayiv. Reb Lezer Tzadik Mechayev. The Chacham depends. Ala chamin chayiv, that diluted the wine with hot water. In that case, he's committed himself to drinking this entire diluted wine. He can't spill it back to the gas, to the wine press, because it's going to ruin and damage the rest of the wine there. In this case, he gave it a din of kva, the wine which he diluted with hot water, assumed a status of kva. It became, he lent it prestige. He gave it he committed himself to drinking this entire serving of wine, and it's considered to be a shtias kva, since he can't go ahead and spill it back to the gas. So if he diluted this wine with hot water, then it's considered to be a shtias kva. It's not connected anymore with the wine press. It's not considered to be an informal drink, and it's considered to be a shtias kva, a regular consumption, and is chayim to resmaisim d'rabbanan. Alat soinen pot, if he merely diluted with cold water, then he still has the opportunity, the option of spilling it back into the wine press. He can take a taste, a sip, and spill the rest back. That's considered to be an informal drink, merely a snack, and is not chayiv in Turas and Maisus midrabanan. And he explains, since he can spill back the leftover wine, because wine which is diluted with cold water is still suitable to be spilled back, it won't damage and ruin the rest of the wine. So this indeed is the point and purpose of the words v'chein bagas. It's meant to refer to this halacha of Turas and Maisus, and has no shaykh, has no relation to the halacha of carrying a baitzah on Shabbos, according to the interpretation of Rava. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so we have a machlekes Abaye v'Rava, whether we are geyser gzeira or not, whether the Chachamim acted a double gzeira regarding the malacha beitzah, or they didn't. Tanan, we have our Mishnah which says, Lo yetza echad to machtoi. One should not, a tailor should not go out with his needle, samach shecha, close, within a half hour, to nightfall, shamish lecho yetze. Perhaps he might inadvertently carry the needle on Shabbos. It says, where is the needle? Where is he containing the needle? My love, the tchuvala bebigdai. Apparently we're speaking about, or we're not speaking about that the needle is pinned into his garment. In that case, says Rashi, even if he were to carry it on Shabbos, he is not chayiv. It's not considered to be a malacha v'yitzah min haTorah. Why? Because it's shaloi kederech yitzah. It's not the usual way of carrying an item. So it's only a issa d'Rabbanan. Nevertheless, the Mishnah tells us that the Chacham made a gzera that he may not do so even samach hashecha. They created a safeguard on top of a safeguard. He cannot walk out to the Rishus Harabim with the needle pinned into his garment close to nightfall. That's one gzera. For fear, for concern, that he'll continue walking in this manner on Shabbos with the pin pinned into his garment. If he were to do so on Shabbos, that would only be a merely Issa D'Rabbanan. So we're enacting Gzera L'Gzera. How can we do so? This seems to be a kasha on Rava. Says the Mishnah is speaking about that he's actually holding the needle in his hand. In that manner, it would indeed be a Issa D'Oraisa if he would walk like that on Shabbos, if he would carry the item in that manner on Shabbos. Therefore, the Chacham indeed erected a safeguard. They will go to Gzera. Don't hold the needle in your hand in Rishus Harabim so close to Shabbos, for fear that you might carry on Shabbos and be over on Issa D'Oraisa. So it's only a Gzera, one Gzera, to a Issa D'Oraisa. It's not a Gzera L'Gzera. Tashma, come, I'll show you from another brayso. L'yetza chayt u'machtoi. So first was a raya from the Mishnah. Now we have a raya from a brayso. L'yetza chayt u'machtoi. Hatchuv l'bebigdoi. The chayat, the tailor should not go out with the pin, which is pinned into his garment. Maila be'er Shabbos. Oh, we're not speaking about on Erev Shabbos close to nightfall. So we see that Chacham made a gzera. Don't walk out with a pin in your garment so close to Shabbos. So they made a gzera. Don't do it so close to Shabbos. That's one gzera, for fear that you might do it on Shabbos. Even if you would do that on Shabbos, it would only be an Issa D'Rabbanan. It would be Shaloi Kederech Hitzah if it's only pinned in your garment. Chacham asered walking like that on Shabbos for fear that one might actually carry the item in his hand. So that's a gzera. So it's a gzera for another gzera. Says Marloi Kitane Hi b'Shabbos. This brayso is actually referring to on Shabbos itself. That a person may not walk out on Shabbos with the pin pinned into his garment for fear that he might actually carry the needle in his hand. So that's only one gzera, but certainly close to Shabbos. On Erev Shabbos, Samach HaSheikh, a person may walk out with the needle pinned into his garment, because that in fact would be a gzera l'gzera. Says more about Tanya, but haven't we learned in a different brayso, which actually stipulates as follows: the tailor may not go out with the needle pinned into his garment. On Erev Shabbos close to darkness. Why? For fear that he may walk out so on Shabbos. So we see a double gzera. Even if he were to do this on Shabbos, with the needle pinned into his garment, that's only a one gzera. We add another gzera. He can't even do it on Erev Shabbos, for fear that it might come to the other Issa D'Rabbanan of doing it on Shabbos. That's a gzera l'gzera. So it's a kash on Rava. Says the Gemara, Hamani Rav Yehuda. Indeed, this is Shitas Rav Yehuda, who holds the Amar Uman Derecham Nosei Chayv, that a craftsman who carries an item in the usual manner that the people of this craft do, he's chayav, even though it's not the usual manner of carrying for an ordinary person. It's not the standard, not the accepted standard way of carrying. Nevertheless, since he is a uman, he is a craftsman who carries the item in this manner, it's for him the usual manner of carrying. Therefore, it is an Issa D'Oraisa, not merely an Issa D'Rabbanan. Therefore, says Rava, this brayso is following the opinion. The author of this brayso is Rav Yehuda, and therefore a tailor, since it is usual for him to carry the machat, the needle pinned into his garment, in order to display his profession, to advertise his craftsmanship. Therefore, it's considered to be derech nusay, his usual way of carrying, standard for this person. And therefore, indeed, he is chayav if he were to walk out into Rishus Harabim with a needle pinned into his garment. It's not merely Issa D'Rabbanan, it's an Issa D'Oraisa. Therefore, certainly Chacham added a gzera and said, don't do it on Erev Shabbos so close to nightfall, because you might do so on Shabbos and be over an Issa D'Oraisa. So it's only one layer, it's only one gzera, it's a gzera. Don't do it on Erev Shabbos, lest he come to do the Issa D'Oraisa on Shabbos. However, according to the other shittas that don't agree with Rav Yehuda, they hold that even a craftsman who carries an item in this manner is pater. It's only an Issa D'Rabbanan. It's Shloi Kederech Hitzah. If even a tailor were to carry the needle pinned into his garment on Shabbos. Therefore, certainly Chacham did not make a gzera that don't do it on Erev Shabbos, lest he does it on Shabbos, because that's a gzera l'gzera. Where do we find Shitas Rabbi Yehuda? Says the Gemara, a tailor should not go out on Shabbos with the needle pinned into his garment. A carpenter with the splinter of wood behind his ear. They do it to display their profession. The one who fluffs the clothing with the cord that he uses for his profession behind his ear. The weaver with the piece of wool that he uses for his profession. So he shouldn't put that behind his ear. The one who dyes the wool, he shouldn't walk out with the sample, with the sample around his neck. The money changer with the coin behind his ear. So these are various craftsmen who carry these items to advertise the profession. But if indeed carries these items in this manner, it's pater. But the rice is not considered to be derech haitzah. It's not the usual manner of carrying items behind the ear, etc. It's also midrabanan. If he's a craftsman and he's carrying the item in the usual manner that the uman carries this item, he's chayiv. Pater. Certainly an ordinary person is pater if he carries the item in this manner. So in summary, according to Abaye, we are geyser regarding Isra Yitzah. Therefore, according to Abaye, one may not stand in the Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah and lean over his head into the carmels and drink. We're concerned that he might bring the item back to himself. When the Mishnah tells us according to Abaye, it's even referring to the needle which is tucked into his garment, which is only Issa D'Rabbanan if he were to do so on Shabbos. Nevertheless, Chachamim created another safeguard. Don't do it Erev Shabbos Samach Hashecha, even though it's Gzeira. According to Rabba, we are not Gzeira even regarding Isra Yitzah. A person may stand in Rosh Hashanah and lean over to a kamas and drink. What does the Mishnah mean when the Mishnah says Lo Yesei Chaytu Machlo Samach Hashecha? It depends. According to Reb Meir, it's referring to holding the needle in his hand. If he were to do so on Shabbos, that's an Issa D'Oraisa. Therefore, Chachamim created a safeguard, a Gzeira. Don't walk out on Shus Rabbim holding the needle in one's hand, even close to nightfall. It's a Gzeira lest he come to do Issa D'Oraisa and carry it on Shabbos. According to Rav Yehuda, this halacha pertains even to a chayat who has the needle tucked into his garment, afilu bebigdoi. Because according to Rav Yehuda, if he were to carry the machat in his beged on Shabbos, he will be over an Issa D'Oraisa because it's uman kederech umnusai, and therefore he may not do so even on Erev Shabbos close to nightfall, lest he continue on and do so on Shabbos. So in sum total, it's only one gzera. Don't do it on Erev Shabbos, so that he doesn't come to do so on Shabbos and be over an Issa D'Oraisa. Continues the Gemara Tani Chad that we learned in one brayso. Lo yetze hazav bekisei. A zav who has experienced an emission of ziva, and he became tamei. So they would tie a pouch onto their aver to collect any further emissions. So the zav should not carry this pouch out in this manner into Rosh Hashanah. Lo yetze hazav bekisei, with this pouch. Ve'miyatza patar v'lasar. But if he does indeed carry it out in this manner, he's not chayav chatas. It's not considered to be haitzah midoraisa. He's pater. Aval aser, it's asa midrabanan. It's considered to be carrying an item shaloi kederech hitzah, not in the usual manner of carrying items, and therefore he is pater. V'tani idach, we have another brayso which says lo yetze, don't go out. V'imyotza chayav chatas. So the result is chayav chatas. So if a stira between the braysos, is it min haTorah or is it only midrabanan? Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef lo kasha. It's not difficult. Let's resolve the braysos in the following manner. Hora Meir Rav Yehuda. We learned earlier a machlekes between Rav Meir Rav Yehuda regarding a craftsman, a uman, who carries out an item kederech umnusay. For instance, a tailor who has the needle tucked into his garment is considered to be not the usual manner of carrying items, but for this individual, for this uman, it's considered to be standard. It is standard. It is usual for the craftsman to display his craft in this manner. According to Rav Meir, it's still not considered to be the usual manner of carrying items, and it's pater. If so, regarding the zav as well, although it is usual and acceptable and standard for the zav to carry the pouch in this manner, since it's not the typical, the usual way of carrying items for the ordinary person, And even the Zav, who carries the pouch in this manner, is not doing an Issa Daraisa, and therefore it's only Pater. It's Pater Aval Aser. According to Rav Yehuda, if a Uman, if a craftsman carries an item in a manner which is usual for him to carry, like a tailor who carries the needle pinned to his garment, even though it's not usual, it's not standard for everybody else, we focus on him. If it is a derech for him to do so, it's considered to be derech hitzah, and it's chayav chatos. Here too regarding the zav. Since it's standard for the zav to have this pouch tied to him, it's considered to be derech hitzah, the usual manner of carrying, and it's chayav chatos. Again, Amar Rav Yosef Leikasha, Harav Meir, the Brayta which says that it is pater, is Shitas Rav Meir, it's shloik derech hitzah. Harav Yehuda, the other Brayta which says chayav chatos, is Rav Yehuda who holds that if he's carrying the item which is usual, which is in usual manner, for him, it is a malacha veitzah and it's chayav chatas. Amalei Abaye. Eimod de shamas l'Rameir. When do we hear the Rameir exempts, holds that it's considered to be shloi kederech? That's only b'midi regarding something delavani urchet, something which is not the derech, not usual for him. Explains Rashi, even a craftsman doesn't generally walk around with these items in this manner. It's only when he decides to display his wear, to display his profession, his craft. So even for the craftsman, it's not considered to be standard and usual way of carrying the item. Therefore, he's pater, according to Rameir. However, the midi, the hainu urche, when it's something usual and standard for him, for instance, the zav, it is usual for the zav to have this pouch tied to him all the time. So although for the ordinary, typical person, it's not considered to be derech hitzah, but forget about everybody else. Look at the zav, focus on this individual. If for him it's considered to be usual and standard, it has the din of derech hitzah, and he's chayiv. V'mida dahainu urchei, if this is the usual manner for him, mishamislei, does Rameir then agree, hold that he's pater? If you're not going to follow this reasoning, and you're not going to focus on this individual, and only follow what is usual and standard for him, if so, what are you going to say in the following halach? Hedyoit, a person that's not a professional, he's an amateur. Shechakak kav bebakas. He takes a log, a bakas, and he's chokek a kav. He bores out, he carves out a measuring hole, a kav, the size of a kav. So that's a malacha, and he does this on Shabbos. So although the end result of his malacha won't have that professional appearance to it, are you going to say that he's pater? Certainly not. Elimiyata hedyoit shechakak, that he bores out a kav, a hole the size of a kav, bebakas, and a log of wood, b'Shabbos or Rameir, hochanami le'mechayev? Are you going to say he's not chayev? Certainly he will be chayev, because this is the usual manner of malacha for this person. So we follow this person, and what is standard for him? We don't look at everybody else. Even though he's not going to do the same quality work as a professional, it's irrelevant. We focus, we determine, we measure by this person and his ability. In this case as well, a zav, it is usual. It is a derech for him to carry this pouch around. Therefore, it's considered to be derech hitzah, and even according to Rameir is chayiv. Ela Amar Rav Nuna, we must reconcile the brises in a different way. Like kasha, it's not difficult. It depends at what stage of a zav he is. Kan bezav al shtei riyos. Here we're speaking about a zav that only had 2 experiences of emission. Kan bezav bal gimel riyos. He saw ziva 3 times. We know that there's a difference between 2 and 3. If he had ziva twice, then he's not chayiv a korban. Therefore, he needs to have that pouch tied to him to determine whether he's going to see a 3rd time and be obligated to bring a korban. Since he needs the pouch tied to him, it's considered to be derech hitzah, and he's chayiv. However, bezav bal gimel riyos, if he already had 3 emissions, in that case, he doesn't need the pouch any longer, and he has no use for it. And it's considered to be shleika derech hitzah, and he's pater. So that's how we explain the difference between the 2 brises. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Maishna zav bal shtei riyos the chayav. Why, when he only saw 2 riyos, he's chayav de miboyle lebdika, because he needs to determine, he needs to examine and see whether he sees a 3rd time to determine whether he's chayav a korban. The same thing regarding the other zav. Zav bal gimel riyos nami miboyle l'sfira. Even a zav that had 3 riyos, he also needs the pouch there to determine, to see whether the next 7 days will be clean days. A zav needs to have 7 clean days without any ziva. So he needs the pouch there to see whether he'll have any more emissions, whether those days are indeed clean days, free of ziva. So since he needs it, is letzorech, it is derech hitzah is chayav. Says apparently the brisa which says that he's pater is speaking about the same exact day that he had experienced the ziva. that day cannot count as the 7 clean days. And therefore on that day he has no point, no benefit, no purpose for the pouch tied to himself, because the 7 clean days only begin from the following day. Therefore on that day he has no use, and it's shleik derech hitzah, and he's potter. Says Gemara, but nevertheless, he needs it. He needs it to protect his garments from becoming soiled. So he has use for it. So why isn't he chayiv? We're following the shita of the following Tana. The Amar kolatzuli tinuf. Whenever something is coming to protect from being soiled, like a chashav, it has no significance. This is not as we learned in the Mishnah. If one turns a plate over on the wall, if the plate should get rinsed by the rainwater, then the rainwater has significance and it has the power to be machshir, a fruit, and make it susceptible to be mekabel tumah. Now we're learning about the halach of hechshel tumah. If a fruit became moist by one of these 7 liquids, water, wine, oil, milk, honey, blood, or dew, it has the halacha of huchshel lekabel tumah, is susceptible. It is roi to accept tumah. If tumah touches it, becomes tameh. Now the pasuk tells us that when a person places water on fruit, it is machshir the fruit to be mekabel tumah. Not only yitain, but also yutan. The Gemara dashes, even if it was placed there on its own. For instance, it rained on the produce. If the person is pleased by the presence of the water, that too has the power of moisturizing the fruit and giving it the din of huchshar, susceptible to be mekabel tumah. Not only in this case, but even if the person, he attributed significance to the rainwater, he intended to use it for a specific purpose, that is machshiv. It attributes significance to the water, and now the rainwater has the ability to be machshir, to moisturize fruit and give it the halacha of a machshir, making it susceptible to mekabel tumah. So if it's in the middle of raining, and the person takes a plate and puts it onto the kaisa, onto the wall. So it depends what his intention was. If he turns the plate over on the wall, if he put it there so that the rainwater should come down and rinse the kara, so he's pleased, he intends on using the rainwater for a specific purpose, to rinse his dishes, then the rainwater, it attains significance chashivas, and it has the ability to go ahead and moisturize the fruit and make it susceptible huchshel lekabel tumah. But if he places the kara there just to deflect the rainwater from the wall, so it doesn't ruin the wall, in this case, he doesn't intend on using the rainwater for any specific purpose, he doesn't attribute any significance to the rainwater, then the rainwater has no ability to be machshir the fruit to be mekabel tumah. So we see that merely protection from being soiled carries no significance. Here too, in our case, if he's simply carrying around this pouch, the zav has a pouch simply to protect his begadim, his garments from becoming soiled, that has no chashivas, has no significance. It's not considered to be derech hitzah, he's not chayiv. Says Umar, what's the comparison? How could you compare the two items? The two concepts. Hasam by the rainwater, he's deflecting the rainwater completely. He doesn't want them. Therefore, it has no chashivas. In our case, even though he doesn't really want the ziva, the emission, but he nevertheless wants the pouch to be in its place, to collect the ziva. Therefore, it has chashivas. It's considered to be derech hitzah. He needs it there. And why should it not be considered to be derech hitzah? Why should it not be chayiv? If you're going to compare the two subjects, we're going to have to compare to a different halacha of the din of hechshel lekabel tumah. Is seifa. We must compare it to the seifa. It says in the seifa areva, a bowl, shiyar delef l'seicha, if a leak dripped into it, so in that case, the water has the following status. Mayim hanitzin v'nitzafen. If the bowl filled up with the leaking water, and it actually sprayed out, nitzin, mayim that sprayed out, v'nitzafen that spilled over the edges, einam b'chiyutan. They're not considered to be water that can be machshir something, because it's not within the bowl, it has no chashivas of being able to be machshir something. Usha b'soicha, but the water that is contained within the bowl, hareze b'chiyutan, that has significance. Since he collected within the bowl, he attributed chashivas to this water, and it has the power to be machshir something lekabel tumah. So we see that if one collects liquid in the bowl, in a receptacle, it gives it chashivas and significance. And therefore, in our case as well, since he's collecting the ziva in this pouch, it's considered to be a ma'aseh chashiv, a significant act, and is considered to be derech haitzah, and he should be chayiv on account of carrying the pouch. So we don't have a reconciliation to the two brises. Once again, we have a stira. One brisa which says carrying a pouch is chayav chatas. The other one says potter. How are we going to answer this stira? We're going to answer in the following manner: Harab Yuda, Harab Shimon. A general machlokes in Masechah Shabbos between these two shittas, Rabbi Yuda and Rabbi Shimon, regarding a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, a malacha that is not required, does not need it for its defined purpose. For instance, if one carries out a mace from a home, from a shisarab, according to Rabbi Yuda, he's chayiv. According to Rabbi Shimon, he's potter, because it's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. He doesn't need this malacha for its defined purpose. He's not carrying out the mace to shisarab because he needs the mace in shisarab. He's merely doing so to resolve a problem, to address a problem. He wants to vacate the home of the mace. In this case, it's not considered to be a malacha regarding chiyuv on Shabbos, because on Shabbos we're only mechayiv on malachas, which are needed legufa for its defined purpose, for constructive purpose, to create something of higher design. Like in the Mishkan, they did the malachas to create something, to craft something for a constructive purpose, for its defined purpose, not merely to address a problem, to avoid the difficulty in a problem. According to Rabbi Yuda, even a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is chayiv. Therefore, in our case, why is the zav carrying the pouch? To protect his begadim from being soiled. That is merely, he's doing a malacha, he's carrying the pouch merely to resolve a difficulty, resolve an issue. It's not for constructive purpose. He doesn't need the pouch for the sake of the pouch itself. It's there to protect himself from being soiled. That's called a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. He's not carrying the pouch because he needs the pouch. He's doing it to resolve a problem. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yuda, he's chayiv. Therefore, the brisa which says chayiv is following she's Rabbi Yuda. The brisa which says potter is following she's Rabbi Shimon. It's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. He's carrying the pouch merely to address a side issue, not for the pouch itself. He's not carrying because he needs the pouch. Therefore, it's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, and he's potter. So in summary, the brisa which says regarding carrying a pouch for his zav, the brisa which says chayav, and the brisa which says potter, how are we going to resolve? We had a few attempts. First we said the brisa which says chayav is Rav Yehuda, the brisa which says potter is Rav Meir. We proceeded and said no, the brisa which says chayav is a zav bal shtei riyos, the brisa which says potter is a zav bal gimel riyos, and finally we said the brisa which says chayav is Rav Yehuda, who holds the malacha she'ena tzricha legufa as chayav, and the brisa which says potter is following she's Rav Shimon. Then a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is potter.